In a big city full of traffic, there lived an old dog named Rocky, who had spent his life guarding a warehouse. One evening he heard his owner say on the phone that the next day he would take him to the shelter because he was too old for work. Rocky pretended to sleep, but something broke inside him. He didn't want to end up in a cage. So in the middle of the night, he pushed the half-open door and left with a crazy idea in his head: to go to Bremen, where street music was in fashion and artists were really listened to. "I'll become a Bremen musician," he told himself, even though he only knew how to bark. After hours of walking along the ring road, Rocky stopped near a field, where an old grey donkey was staring at a rusty fence. His name was Pedro, and for years he had carried children on his back in a riding school. Now he limped, and the owner wanted to replace him with a young pony, sending him to a faraway animal retirement home. Pedro had broken the padlock and got out. "Where are you going, Long Ears?" Rocky asked. "Far away from those who don't want me," sighed the donkey. "Me too," said the dog. "I'm going to Bremen to be a street musician. I have a hoarse voice. You have a fine bray. We could form a band. Better to play music in the street than grow old in silence." Pedro imagined people clapping instead of shaking their heads. "All right," he said, "I'll come with you." The two set off again, side by side. Further on, behind a restaurant, they found a cat with white fur stained by smog, rummaging among leftovers. Her name was Diva. Once she had been the queen of the sofa of an elegant lady. Then a new kitten arrived, and she was shut away in the kitchen. One day she heard talk of getting rid of the old cat and slipped out through the window. "Does our band need a singer?" asked Rocky. Diva turned, annoyed and curious. "I don't perform for those who don't understand art," she said. "In Bremen there are tourists and artists," Pedro put in. "There you could meow as much as you like." The name Bremen sounded wonderful to Diva's ears. She pretended to think about it, then jumped down from the dumpster. "I'll come with you, but my name has to be at the top of the poster," she declared. "We don't even have a poster," Rocky grumbled, "but when we're famous we'll make one." The trio went on until in the distance they heard a shrill voice trying to rap from the top of a lamppost. There was a colorful rooster with headphones over one ear. His name was Beat, and he lived on a farm. Every morning he woke everyone up. Every night he practiced rap songs until the farmer, exasperated, had threatened to turn him into soup. Beat had flown over the gate and away. "Hey, golden voice," Rocky shouted. "Have you ever thought of performing in Bremen?" The rooster puffed out his chest. "Yes, but I don't know where to go," he replied. "Then come with us," Diva suggested. "We're forming the most unlikely band in the city." Beat flew down from the lamppost and landed on Pedro's back, happy to finally have a group. The sun had already set when the four, exhausted, found themselves near a small wood on the outskirts of the city. The lights of the buildings sparkled in the distance, but they were hungry and sleepy. They were about to sleep under a tree when Beat saw, among the trees, a detached house with its windows lit. "There's a party in there," he said. "I hear music and smell pizza." Creeping closer, they peeped through a window. Inside, 4 guys in hoodies were toasting, surrounded by boxes, computers, jewelry and phones. They were thieves using that house as a hideout. On the table, there was enough food to feed everyone. "If we had that house," Diva whispered, "we could live there and rehearse without anyone chasing us away." Rocky felt his old guard dog instinct return. "Let's give our most frightening concert," he said. "We'll all stand one on top of the other in front of the window, and at my signal we all play like the world is about to end." Pedro stood by the wall. Rocky jumped onto his back, Diva climbed onto the dog's shoulders, and Beat perched on the cat's head. There were a huge, strange shadow against the glass. At Rocky's signal, Pedro began to bray like a siren, Rocky to bark like 100 dogs, Diva to meow like an offended diva, and Beat to shout rap that sounded like electronic alarms. The din was so sudden that the thieves, convinced the police had arrived, jumped up and ran out the back door without even turning off the lights. The animals burst into the house and devoured pizza and bread. Then each found their place. Rocky near the front door ready to keep watch, Pedro on the veranda, his eyes on the stars, Diva on the softest sofa, Beat on the living room lamp, which for him was a giant microphone. They slept deeply. The next morning, one of the thieves came back on tiptoe to recover the loot. He came in from the back, tripped over a box, and woke Rocky, who growled at him with all the voice he had. In the dark, he reached out his hand and touched Diva, who scratched him without mercy. Trying to escape, he bumped into Pedro's legs, and the donkey, still half asleep, kicked out. Finally, he found himself face to face with Beat, who screamed a rap right into his ear, so out of tune that it froze his blood. The thief, now convinced that the house was haunted, fled without looking back, vowing never to return. From that day on, the four friends stayed there. They never reached Bremen, but they no longer needed to. News of their strange band spread among the neighbors. Some heard a bray that sounded like a trumpet, others a bark that kept the beat, a meow that did the solos, and a rap-style cock-a-doodle-doo that sounded like drums. Children and teenagers began to stop in front of the gate to listen, throwing in a few coins or a slice of pizza. Someone even opened an online channel, calling them the Town Musicians of Bremen 2.0, and their sounds began to travel around the web. Rocky, Pedro, Diva, and Beat. Animals nobody wanted anymore, thus found a home, an audience, and a band in which everyone with their off-key and special voice was as important as the others. And if one night you happened to hear in the distance a concert of barks, brays meows, and rooster rap, maybe it asked their music traveling through the air to remind you that anyone with a dream to play will sooner or later always find their stage.